At this time, we're going to study about the historicity of biblical genealogies. The American Old Testament scholar Travis Freeman speaks about the historicity of the genealogies in Genesis chapter 5 and Genesis chapter 11 as follows. In the Journal of Creation, Freeman says this. He says that some modern theologians believe that the names and the numbers in Genesis chapter 5 and 11 form a continuous. In other words, without generational omissions, it forms a continuous linear genealogy and chronology from Adam to Abraham. While they acknowledge that there are genealogies in the Bible that have some omissions, however, we cannot say that all genealogies in the Bible have omissions or gaps. Furthermore, the genealogies of Genesis 5 and 11 are exceptions to the rule of generational omissions. There is another very renowned theologian named Samuel Quilling who also subscribes to this view. He believes that the genealogy in Ezra chapter 7 and Matthew chapter 1 are not continuous, but they do contain gaps or omissions. However, even though these genealogies do contain gaps, the Bible contains other types of genealogies, and among them are the genealogies of Genesis chapter 5 and chapter 11. The two genealogies in Genesis 5 and 11 contain these ages of the fathers at procreation. And in seeing these numbers, we could conclude that these genealogies are recorded according to chronology and accurate chronology. And so he posits that these two genealogies contains no omissions at all. Especially as we see that Genesis records the age of Abraham when Isaac was born and the age of Isaac when Jacob was born. This shows us that the purpose of such recording is to inform the readers of an accurate chronology. Then, as these theologians assert, what is the basis that the chronological records that appear in these two genealogies are inerrant? There are three major bases to show the inerrancy of these records. First, the genealogy in Genesis chapter 5 and Genesis chapter 11 list the birth and the age at procreation and their age of life here on earth are accurately recorded about the 20 patriarchs that it records. And so this kind of accurate chronological record is not to be found in other genealogies. These are very distinctive features. And it is also asserting that these records are reliable, because the records about these 20 patriarchs are historical facts. And if that is not the case, then there is no reason to record such accurate numbers and years. Secondly, what is the second reason why we could rely on these records? It is because the order of the 20 patriarchs recorded in Genesis chapter 5 and 11 do not go against the list of orders of these 20 patriarchs that appear in other parts of the Bible. For example, in 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verses 1 through 4 and 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verses 24 through 27 record the same genealogy, and the order is exactly the same. In 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 1 it says Adam, Seth, Enosh. And then in 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 2 it says Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared. And then in 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 3, it says Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech. And then in 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 4, it says Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So clearly, the genealogy in Genesis chapter 5, which records from Adam to Noah, the 1 Chronicles chapter 1 genealogy is clearly an exact match. Also in 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 24 through 27, it says Shem, Arpachshad, Shelah. And then in verse 25, it says Eber, Peleg, and Reu. Verse 26 states Serug, Nahor, Terah. And then in verse 27, it says Abram, that is Abraham. This is also an exact match with the genealogy that appears in Genesis chapter 11, verses 10 through 32, which is a genealogy that goes from Shem, Noah's son Shem, all the way down to Abraham. Again, another exact match. The genealogy which appears in Genesis 5 and Genesis 11 also match the genealogy of Luke chapter 3, which is Jesus' genealogy. Of course, when we look at Luke chapter 3, verses 34 through 38, there is a difference of one individual. And that one difference is between Arpachshad and Shelah. Between Arpachshad and Shelah, there is an individual listed whose name is Canaan, who does not appear in the genealogy in Genesis chapter 11. However, when we view Shelah and Canaan as twins, we will also see that there is no problem in calculating chronology and the years of chronology. In the book of Jubilees, it tells us that Canaan practiced divinations and he committed idolatry. Therefore, we could see that Canaan was a person that was not worthy to succeed the generations within the genealogy of Shem. Therefore, we could see that Shelah Shelah replaced him in the genealogy instead. And therefore, until certain proof is provided to tell us that there are gaps in these genealogies, we can be assured that a continuous chronological reckoning that is based on the Hebrew original text is much more accurate and reliable than other historical sources which are prone to corruption, or more accurate than the chronological calculations that are based upon inferences or conjectures. Thirdly, we could see that the genealogy in the Gospel of Matthew is completely different from the genealogies in Genesis chapter 5 and Genesis chapter 11. There are two different types of genealogies. When we compare the Matthean genealogy with other biblical records, we could see that the Matthean genealogy contains many omissions or gaps. And the reason is because the Matthean genealogy is not a historical genealogy recorded according to physical lineage, but it is rather a genealogy recorded under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, focused on the fulfillment of the administration of redemptive history. The Matthean genealogy is divided into 3 periods of 14 generations, which focus on the individuals who have brought to the foreground God's redemptive activities until the genealogy finally reaches the climax of redemptive history in Jesus Christ. And this is recorded in Matthew chapter 1, verse 17. Therefore, the Matthean genealogy does not record all individuals that appear in history. Matthew targets the Jewish readers, and it seeks to help them understand the fact that Jesus is the Messiah himself. And in doing this, it starts Jesus' genealogy with Abraham. And in such a view, we can see that the Matthean genealogy is not a historical list of births and generations, but rather the Matthean genealogy is focused on the succession of the lineage of faith. Therefore, the Matthean genealogy, which is recorded with a redemptive historical focus, we cannot use this Matthean genealogy as a basis to doubt the historicity and the accuracy of the Genesis chapter 5 and the Genesis chapter 11 genealogy. Therefore, we must accept the Hebrew original text of the Genesis chapter 5 and Genesis chapter 11 genealogies. And when we use this to calculate the chronology of the history through these genealogies, then we will be able to experience the inerrancy of the Bible, and we will also be able to experience the profound and deep spiritual world that the Bible introduces to us. Within the genealogy of the descendants of Shem, we're going to be studying about the theme of the reduction of the lifespan and the flood. Reduction of human lifespan and the flood. All the human beings that were born after Shem suddenly had their lifespans reduced suddenly. Noah lived to be 950 years old, and Shem lived to be 600 years old. But Arpachshad lived to be 438. And then Shelah lived to be 433 years old. And then Eber also lived to be 464 years old. Here, we could see that after Shem, human lifespan went from somewhere in the 600s into the 400s. You could see that there was a sudden reduction here. So, why did human lifespan all of a sudden get reduced from the 600s into the 400s? Noah and Shem were both generations that were born before the flood, but Arpachshad, Shelah, and Eber were people who were born after the flood. Therefore, we could see that this human reduction of human lifespan had a very close relation. It was closely related to the flood itself. In other words, through the flood, many great changes took place. And what kind of changes are those? First, there was great topographical change. Previously, a great tsunami came to the island of Japan, and there was a great earthquake there also. And when the tsunami and the earthquake took place, the entire island of Japan had shifted. And also there was all kinds of topographical changes that took place on the island of Japan. And if that was the case, then through this universal flood, which was a judgment of God, we can be certain that even greater topographical changes must have taken place. In Psalm 104, verses 6 through 9, it says this: "You covered it with a deep as with a garment. The waters were standing above the mountains. At your rebuke they fled. At the sound of your thunder they hurried away. The mountains rose, the valleys sank down to the place which you established for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass over, so that they will not return to cover the earth." Here, in Psalm 104, verse 8, it says, "The mountains rose, the valleys sank down." So this is showing us that topographical changes did not merely take place in a small scale, but it was a large-scale, catastrophic topographical change that took place. And we could see that this had a great influence on the reduction of human lifespan. And then secondly, there was a great change that occurred in the climate. A great change in the climate. According to the principle of God's creation, the earth, with the sun in the center, the earth revolves around the sun and also rotates according to the 24-hour day span. And through this rotation and revolution, we see that the earth sustains a beautiful and suitable seasons and a suitable place for us to live. And we see millions and billions of stars keeping their place in the universe. And we see how orderly this universe is. And we can see that all of the universe and its creation was created to be beneficial for humankind. However, through the flood, all the nature and creation and all the atmosphere and the environment that we live in and that we breathe and intake, all of it has been influenced and affected in a negative way. The Creator, when he saw that the world was full of sin and that human beings were all violent and full of sin, he regretted creating them, and then he brought the flood judgment to bring judgment upon them and to wipe them out. And through the flood, there was great topographical change that took place on earth. And the topographical change, it could only result in a change in the climate. The orderly creation that had been created after the flood, and all the orderly creation which was suitable for mankind, and all of its climate and the land, because of the flood, had completely changed, and it was different from the beginning of creation. And as a result of sin, and because the flood judgment took place as a result of sin, and afterwards, the climate change that took place on earth is no longer beneficial to mankind, but it may also be harmful in some ways. And after the flood, it was not like before the flood, but there was unnatural climate that took place. There was extreme changes in the weather and the seasons. There was intense and severe cold and intense and severe heat that started to take place. And as such, the aging process of mankind started to get faster, and human beings got sicker all of a sudden, and as a result, human lifespan was reduced. In Genesis chapter 8, verse 22, it says, "While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease." Here, the word heat in Hebrew is hom, and it talks about an intense or extreme heat. And also, the word cold in this verse in Hebrew is kor, and it signifies an extreme and intense cold. And in Genesis chapter 8, verse 21, it says, this, "The Lord said, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. And I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done." And so this is implying that the result that occurred was because of such reasons as the evil intent of man and the sin of mankind. And the earth was cursed because of this. And as a result of sin, the flood judgment took place. And as a result of the flood judgment, there was great topographical change that took place on earth. And as a result of the topographical change on earth, there was also a great climatic change that took place on earth. See, human beings were not made to live in this extreme cold and extreme heat. And as a result of these climate changes, life became more difficult for human beings and their lifespan was reduced. And therefore, we could see that the flood during Noah's days had a great influence and affected the reduction of the human lifespan. And then thirdly, there was atmospheric changes that took place. Changes in the conditions of the atmosphere. Originally, in order to prevent the harmful sun rays to come directly into the sun, there was a layer of water above the atmosphere of the earth. However, during Noah's days, when God brought the flood judgment, that layer of water above the earth all poured down onto the earth, and it was all gone. In Genesis chapter 7, verses 11 and 12, it says this: in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on the same day, all the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were opened. In other words, during the flood, God made all the fountains of the deep burst open, and he also had the floodgates of the sky opened, so that all the waters, all the rain would fall down to the earth. Furthermore, it says the rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Even in this world, people say something like this: when it rains really hard for a long time, people say, "Oh my gosh, is there a hole in the sky that it's raining so much?" And as such, really, during Noah's days, the floodgates of the sky were really actually opened, and the layers of water all fell down as rain upon the earth. And as a result, after the flood, the harmful rays of the sun directly came onto the earth. Before the flood, these harmful rays were unable to come directly into the sun because of the layer of water that was above the atmosphere. So it blocked the harmful rays of the sun to come directly into the sun. But after the flood, after this layer of water had disappeared, the harmful rays of the sun came directly into the sun. And because of this, it had a great impact in bringing about the reduction of the human lifespan. When we read Revelation chapter 7, verse 16, it talks about how the fallen world will be restored to its original beautiful place. And it says this: it says, "They will hunger no longer, nor thirst anymore, nor will the sun beat down on them, nor any heat." So when you read this passage, it's telling us that before this fallen world will be recovered, that in this fallen world we are being harmed by the sun that's beating down on us. However, when we enter God's kingdom, we will not be beat down upon by the sun or the heat. And so as such, we could see that there is the sun beating down on us in this fallen world. And so we may get skin cancer because of this. And also, strangely, human beings are unable to produce vitamin C in their bodies, so we get tired very easily. And so today, because of such atmospheric changes that took place on Earth, this had a great effect and impact on reducing the human lifespan. As we can see above, Because of the flood, there was intense and catastrophic topographical changes that took place on Earth. And because of this, great catastrophic changes in the climate took place. And furthermore, great changes in the atmosphere also took place. And these kinds of changes greatly influenced human life, and it had a great impact in reducing the human lifespan suddenly. And that was the result. The result was that human lifespan was suddenly reduced. The cause of the flood judgment was the sin of mankind. Genesis chapter 6 verse 13 says, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. And behold, I am about to destroy them with the earth." Human sin was the fundamental cause of the flood judgment. Therefore, because of human sin, human lifespan was also reduced. During Noah's days, there were the great topographical changes that took place also because of human sins. Therefore, Proverbs chapter 10 verse 27 says something like this: "The days of the wicked ones will be shortened. However, those who fear the Lord will live a long time. They will prolong their days." If you truly trust in God and believe in Him well, then you will live a long time. You will not get sick, but you will live a healthy life. And this is what the Bible tells us. Therefore, Noah and his son Shem lived to be 600 years old. But Noah's grandson Arpachshad lived to be only 438 years old. So we can see that sometime between the generation of Shem and the generation of Arpachshad, there was this great sudden reduction of human life of about 200 years. And this is all because of human sin. Furthermore, the cause of the flood judgment was also because of human sin. Then we could also conclude that the fundamental reason of the sudden reduction of human lifespan was also because of human sin. Therefore, today, we must distance ourselves from sin, but live a life that fears God. And when we do this, then we will receive the blessing of longevity.